In recent weeks, speculation has reignited around Johnny Depp's health after a series of public appearances left fans and media puzzled. Cameras flashed, social media buzzed, and a wave of concern swept across entertainment news platforms when the iconic actor was seen at several events with what many described as a strange blank face. The man once known for his expressive performances and eccentric charm suddenly appeared withdrawn, with a vacant gaze and subdued demeanor that starkly contrasted with the lively image the public had come to associate with him. Questions began, swirling. Was this simply fatigue, a bad photo angle, or was there something more serious behind this sudden change in Depp's appearance and behavior? The murmurs began at the premiere of a European film festival where Depp was in attendance to promote his latest cinematic venture. Dressed in his signature bohemian style, Depp smiled briefly for the cameras, but something seemed amiss. Observers noted his lack of energy, the stiffness in his posture, and an almost haunting stillness in his face. He appeared disengaged, as if mentally absent from the world around him. Gone was the charismatic sparkle in his eye, replaced by an unsettling neutrality that fans described as eerily vacant. For an actor whose face had become his most powerful instrument, capable of conveying complex emotion without a word, the absence of expression was not just odd, it was deeply unsettling. Medical professionals unaffiliated with the actor began weighing in on television panels and social media forums. While it would be unethical to diagnose someone from a distance, some neurologists and psychologists suggested that Depp's blank facial expression could be a sign of neurological impairment or even early signs of Parkinson's disease. Others speculated it could be linked to medication side effects or the residual effects of past trauma and stress. Though none of these claims were confirmed, the mere suggestion of such conditions sparked a frenzy of analysis and concern. Theories multiplied, and within days the mystery of Johnny Depp's blank face had taken on a life of its own. Depp, who has always been deeply private about his personal health, did not respond publicly. Those close to him remained tight-lipped, offering no official statements or explanations. This silence only fueled the fire. When videos from the same event surfaced, showing Depp seemingly zoning out during interviews, barely blinking and offering mechanical responses, the narrative began to shift from idle gossip to urgent speculation. Was Johnny Depp facing a serious health battle behind closed doors? The timeline added fuel to the speculation. Not long before these appearances, Depp had wrapped production on a particularly grueling period film that reportedly took a physical toll on many of its cast and crew. Known for his immersive approach to roles, Depp allegedly insisted on performing many of his own stunts and frequently worked long hours without breaks. A crew member who spoke on condition of anonymity described the set atmosphere as punishing and said that Depp often appeared utterly drained between takes, needing extended time in solitude. While such behavior could easily be chalked up to artistic intensity, in hindsight, it seemed like part of a larger and more troubling pattern. Adding another layer of intrigue was Depp's recent travel schedule. In the months leading up to the troubling appearances, Depp had been flying back and forth between the US, Europe, and parts of Asia for various professional commitments, including film festivals, meetings about future projects, and even low-key musical performances with his band the Hollywood Vampires. For a man in his early 60s, this relentless pace would be exhausting under the best of circumstances, but coupled with possible underlying health issues, the toll may have been more severe than anyone realized. Insiders began to speculate that the combination of overwork, jet lag, and mounting physical strain could be wearing him down, manifesting visibly in his now emotionless expression. Others believed the answer lay elsewhere, perhaps in the psychological realm. Johnny Depp has been through an extraordinarily turbulent decade, with his name constantly splashed across tabloid headlines during his highly publicized legal battle with ex-wife Amber Heard. The protracted court cases, media scrutiny, and intense public judgment may have left scars not easily seen. Trauma, particularly when coupled with relentless exposure, can leave a lasting impact on a person's mental and emotional health. Psychologists interviewed by major outlets pointed to something known as emotional numbing, a condition often linked to post-traumatic stress disorder. Those who experience emotional numbing describe feeling disconnected from their surroundings and unable to experience or express emotions fully. Could this be the silent burden Depp was carrying? Supporters of Depp were quick to jump to his defense. Fan pages lit up with messages of love and concern, urging the media to refrain from making assumptions or exploiting what could be a deeply personal struggle. They reminded the public of Depp's lifelong battle with anxiety and depression, conditions he has spoken about in past interviews, albeit rarely. In one such interview years ago, Depp admitted that he often felt unworthy and experienced long bouts of melancholy, even at the height of his fame. These admissions now took on renewed significance. Had his mental health struggles reached a new, more debilitating phase? Meanwhile, alternative theories began surfacing, some more conspiratorial than others. A few online commentators questioned whether Depp was on a new medication regimen that was affecting his facial muscles or cognitive processing. Others wondered if a recent surgery, kept private for personal reasons, could be the cause of his appearance. There were even wild speculations about a stroke or mini seizures, despite no concrete evidence. While many of these theories were unsubstantiated, they reflected a shared anxiety that something serious was being hidden from public view. The media frenzy reached a peak when paparazzi photos emerged showing Depp entering a private clinic in Switzerland. While the actor's representatives declined to comment, some reports indicated that he had been visiting a specialist in neurological disorders. The clinic, known for its discretion and state-of-the-art treatments, caters primarily to celebrities and high-net-worth individuals. The ambiguity surrounding this visit only deepened the mystery. Was Depp undergoing testing? Was this a routine checkup or a sign of something more dire? Old friends and collaborators offered mixed insights. Tim Burton, Depp's longtime creative partner and close friend, was reportedly concerned but optimistic. In an off-the-record conversation captured by a European journalist, Burton allegedly mentioned that Depp had been going through something, but remained strong and focused. Helena Bonham Carter, another frequent co-star, told a British outlet that she had spoken to Depp recently and that he was quiet, but not in a way that alarmed me. Still, fans found little reassurance in these vague and carefully chosen words. In the absence of concrete information, many turned to analyzing Depp's most recent interviews and public comments for clues. In a short Q&A segment at a film festival in Rome, Depp was asked about his current state of mind. He paused for an uncomfortably long time before replying, "I think I'm just listening more these days. Sometimes silence is the loudest thing in the room." The cryptic remark sparked further interpretation. Was he alluding to inner turmoil, or was this just another example of his famously enigmatic personality? As concern continued to mount, advocates for mental health awareness urged the public to treat the situation with sensitivity. They reminded audiences that outward appearances can be deceptive and that high-functioning individuals can still suffer from profound internal struggles. Depp, they argued, deserved compassion, not scrutiny or speculation. Social media campaigns promoting mental health began trending alongside Depp's name, with hashtags like "Geeked Support Johnny" and "It's okay to not be okay" gaining traction. Still, the entertainment industry is not known for its patience with mystery. Studio executives, wary of insurability and public perception, reportedly began reconsidering Depp for some upcoming roles. Though no official statements were made, one source claimed that negotiations for a high-profile biopic had been quietly shelved due to uncertainty regarding Depp's health. Others noted that while his fan base remains strong and loyal, the industry itself is driven by optics and risk assessment. An actor who appears unwell, even if only visually, can trigger nervousness among producers and investors. Despite all the noise, Depp continued to make selective public appearances, albeit more infrequently. At one charity event, he spoke briefly about the importance of protecting your peace and guarding your soul from the chaos outside. Though he never directly addressed his health, the statement resonated with fans who saw it as an acknowledgement of his inner battles. Some interpreted his distant demeanor as a deliberate act, a shield against further public intrusion. Perhaps the blank face wasn't a sign of illness, but rather a choice to disengage from a world that had scrutinized him too harshly for too long. Eventually, Depp's legal team released a carefully worded statement, not to explain his appearance, but to preempt further speculation. Mr. Depp is in good health and remains committed to his artistic projects and philanthropic endeavors. Any speculation to the contrary is both unhelpful and unfounded. The statement did little to dispel the sense of mystery. It addressed the concern but provided no answers. For many, the lack of detail was frustrating, even suspicious. The truth may be simpler and more human than any theory can explain. Perhaps Johnny Depp, after decades of relentless attention, scandal, and performance, is simply tired. Perhaps. The blank expression is not a symptom of disease, but a reflection of a man who has weathered too many storms and now chooses silence over spectacle. In a culture that demands constant visibility and explanation, choosing to retreat, even emotionally, can look like a red flag when it may just be a form of self-preservation. In the end, the mystery of Johnny Depp's strange blank face may never be fully resolved. But perhaps it doesn't need to be. Whether it's health-related, psychological, or simply the natural evolution of a man who has lived in the spotlight for too long, one thing remains clear. Johnny Depp continues to captivate, even in silence. His face, once a canvas of vibrant expression, now invites reflection on fame, resilience, and the quiet battles we all face behind closed doors. In the ever-spinning wheel of celebrity culture, there is rarely room for stillness. Every gesture, every smile, every perceived frown is magnified, analyzed, and interpreted by a public that often forgets the humanity behind the image. Johnny Depp, once the poster child for magnetic eccentricity, was never just another Hollywood heartthrob. He built his career on portraying the unusual, the tortured, the misunderstood. But now, with eyes that seem to gaze inward rather than outward, and a mouth that rarely curves into that familiar, crooked grin, he reflects not a character, but the weight of decades spent under the unforgiving spotlight. The blankness of his face has become a mirror, reflecting not just his own internal world, but the unforgiving expectations of an industry that devours novelty and demands endless performance. This recent transformation, subtle yet deeply noticeable, has sparked conversations not just about Depp, but about the psychological toll of fame itself. What does it do to a person to have their identity constantly dissected? To be both loved and loathed in equal measure by strangers who claim ownership over your life? For Depp, who has weathered tabloid scandals, courtroom dramas, and betrayals. Both personal and professional, the cumulative toll must be immense. It's easy to forget that while the public sees headlines and hears courtroom sound bites, the emotional cost of enduring such relentless scrutiny runs much deeper. The human nervous system is not designed to withstand such an unending onslaught of judgment. Over time, something changes. The body, the face, the very way one holds oneself adapts, sometimes through numbness, sometimes through withdrawal. 2. Look at Johnny Depp today is to see more than just a celebrity enduring a difficult moment. It is to see a man who has perhaps exhausted his capacity to engage in the way he once did. The blankness in his expression may not be emptiness, but protection, a kind of armor forged from years of experience, disappointment, and survival. There is a difference between absence and detachment, between being lost and being still. For all anyone knows behind that stoic exterior may be a mind still sharp, a heart still aching, and a soul quietly rebuilding itself in the background. Depp's silence has spoken volumes. While other celebrities often feel compelled to share every detail of their lives through social media, interviews, and carefully orchestrated image management, Depp has largely retreated. His online presence is sparse, and his public appearances are selective. And when he does speak, he chooses his words carefully, often leaning into metaphor or poetic abstraction rather than direct explanation. It's a stylistic choice, yes, but it also signals a deeper truth. There are some pains that cannot be easily articulated. Some battles are fought in silence, and the face, especially one as well known as his, can become the only battlefield visible to the world. Observers might wonder whether this detachment is a form of surrender. Has he given up, grown tired, of trying to reclaim the vibrancy of his earlier years? But that would be an oversimplification. Sometimes resilience looks like fire. Other times, it looks like stillness. And in Depp's case, there is something undeniably powerful in his refusal to perform emotion for the sake of public reassurance. In a culture obsessed with quick fixes and instant transparency, his silence is almost revolutionary. It suggests that not everything must be understood, that not all suffering demands an audience, and that healing is often a private, slow, and non-linear process. There is also something sobering about the way Depp's face now reflects the passage of time. Gone is the youthful mischief that once defined his persona. In its place is something more subdued, perhaps more truthful. The entertainment industry is notorious for its obsession with youth, with maintaining illusions and denying age. Depp, though still capable of commanding attention, no longer hides the signs of aging or covers up the effects of weariness, and in doing so he offers a rare glimpse of authenticity in a world that constantly pressures its stars to maintain an eternal facade. The blankness, then, becomes less a symptom of decline and more a statement of defiance. A way of saying, I am still here, even if I no longer feel the need to explain myself to you. This visible transformation has also opened up larger questions about how we interpret human emotion, especially in the context of public figures. We are quick to assign meaning to every frown or pause, to project narratives onto a single look, but perhaps Depp's face now resists those narratives altogether. Maybe it's not blankness, but neutrality, not absence, but presence without performance. There is something deeply human about that resistance, about choosing to simply exist without explanation. For all we know, that blank expression might be what peace looks like after decades of war, both internal and external. And even as he steps back from the spotlight, Depp continues to inspire reflection among those who have followed his journey. His blank face is not a void, it's a canvas of quiet resilience. It forces us to reconsider our assumptions about strength, to understand that sometimes the loudest forms of courage are the most silent. In his stillness, there is a kind of truth that words cannot capture, and perhaps that is the lesson buried within the mystery, that true transformation is not always dramatic or visible. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's hidden behind the eyes of a man who has seen too much, felt too deeply, and decided that the only path forward is one of silence and solitude. Ultimately, we may never know what lies beneath the surface of Johnny Depp's now solemn expression. But maybe we don't need to. In a world addicted to knowing everything, there is value in mystery. There is dignity in silence. And there is still power in the presence of a man who has given so much of himself to the world, and now quietly asks for space to simply be. That, too, is a kind of performance, one that doesn't require a script or a spotlight, only respect. In an era dominated by the insatiable hunger for content, where the personal lives of celebrities are often picked apart like puzzle pieces for public consumption, Depp's decision to retreat into the shadows and withhold explanation feels like an act of resistance. The relentless pursuit of truth, especially when it comes to the private lives of stars, can sometimes border on the intrusive, as though the audience feels entitled to every facet of a person's existence. But in choosing silence, Depp asserts a much-needed boundary, saying in his own way, "Not everything about me belongs to you." In this quiet act of defiance, there is an elegance that commands attention not through spectacle, but through the very absence of it. This kind of silence is often misunderstood. People may mistake it for defeat or withdrawal, assuming that a lack of outward expression signals an inability to connect with the world. But in truth, silence can be a deeply intentional choice, one made with purpose and power. It allows for reflection and for regaining control over one's own narrative. Depp, who has spent decades in the public eye, likely understands this more than most. Fame has a tendency to strip away ownership of one's own image, leaving behind only what others perceive. By retreating from that gaze and opting for stillness, Depp reclaims ownership of his identity in a way that goes beyond the shallow layers of public perception. Silence, after all, is a tool that requires immense strength to wield. It can be the quiet resolve of a man who has seen the best and worst of what the world has to offer and chooses, in his own way, to process it on his own terms. It's easy to think of celebrities as invincible figures, immune to the complexities of human emotion, but in reality they are as vulnerable as anyone else. They too have their battles, their scars, their personal demons that may never see the light of day. In the case of Depp, who has faced a series of personal and professional challenges over the years, the blankness on his face might not be emptiness, but rather a silent acknowledgement of the emotional weight he has been carrying. There is a subtle power in withdrawing from the spotlight. In a society that demands constant updates and visibility, to retreat into oneself is an act of profound resistance. It is a way of stepping out of the race for public approval and allowing one's true self to exist, even if that self is fragmented, broken, or in the process of healing. Johnny Depp's solemn face may be interpreted as a symptom of exhaustion or apathy, but it could just as easily be a sign of deep introspection, a conscious choice to disengage from the noise and simply be present with one's own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. This stillness, this quiet presence, demands a different kind of respect. It asks that we not judge too quickly or make assumptions about what lies beneath the surface. Instead, it invites us to consider that sometimes the most profound truths are those that are not immediately visible or easily explained. In a world that often celebrates noise and spectacle, there is something deeply human about choosing to exist without constant validation, without the need for applause or recognition. Depp's decision to embrace this quiet phase in his life could be seen as an invitation to those around him, his fans, his peers, and even the critics, to reflect on their own relationship with the public eye. How often do we confuse outward expression with inner peace? How frequently do we equate visibility with value? Johnny Depp, by withdrawing from the expectations placed on him, challenges us to rethink these assumptions. He reminds us that a person's worth is not defined by how loud they are or how much they reveal to the world. There is power in silence, in absence, in the space between words and actions. It is in these quiet moments that the most authentic parts of ourselves often emerge. In choosing to let his face remain still, Depp invites us into a deeper conversation about the nature of fame itself. It forces us to question whether fame truly offers fulfillment or whether it merely demands a price, one that many are unwilling to pay. For Depp, it seems that the price has been too high, and he has chosen to step away from the constant spectacle that once defined his career. His face, devoid of expression, becomes a mirror reflecting not just his own internal journey, but the larger story of an individual who has navigated the pressures of fame and emerged on the other side, weary yet undeniably resilient. There is a certain beauty in that resilience. It may not always come in the form of grand gestures or public declarations. Sometimes it arrives in the form of quiet defiance, a refusal to conform to the expectations placed upon a person, especially when those expectations no longer serve the individual. Depp's face, once a canvas of energetic performances and charismatic expressions, has transformed into something more introspective, more grounded. It is as though he has shed the layers of artifice and left only the essence of who he is, unadorned and raw. And perhaps that is the most important lesson in all of this. Johnny Depp's strange, blank face is not a symbol of defeat, but of evolution. It represents a man who has lived many lives in the public eye, who has experienced triumphs and tragedies, and who has chosen, at this stage of his life, to simply be. There is profound strength in that decision, and while we may never fully understand what he is going through, we are reminded that there is value in letting someone exist on their own terms, without the need for constant explanation. In this silence, Johnny Depp's true power lies.